Getting science right matters. Sometimes our lives are on the line. That's why debates over vaccines, global warming, stem cells, and so on are important. The left says the right ignores good science. They deny global warming. Some deny evolution. They pass laws that ban stem cell research that might save lives. The right says it's leftists who ignore science. It's the left who obsessed about overpopulation and led campaigns against vaccines, plastics, artificial sweeteners. I can go on. The left's ignorance about science has a bigger effect on our lives. If religious conservatives reject evolution, species will continue to evolve. If they ban government funding of stem cell research, private investors will continue the work. But when leftists push dubious science, they often get politicians to pass laws based on it. And those laws subject all of us to government force. They restrict our choices. Matt Welch has followed the debates over politics and science from his position as editor of Reason magazine. Do I characterize this correctly?
I think so. I think that the right is capable, too, of passing laws that affect us negatively based on their preferences and bad preferences at any given time, too. I think what's important for all of us is to separate what a politician says about science and what a politician says about policy, which is the actual job that we elect politicians to do. We have this sense here, a lot of people like to argue about science rather than argue about policy because it's easier to say, oh, he's a troglodyte and he's a bad guy, we don't have to listen to him, than it is to defend figuring out trade-offs with something like global warming and climate change.
In general, people on the right are more skeptical about global warming, the big issue of the day. So a popular video portrays Republicans as geezers who deny science.
Does your parent, grandparent, or political representative suffer from climate change denial disorder? CCDD is a rapidly spreading disease that World Health officials say, if left untreated, could destroy the entire planet.
There's nothing more relaxing than being out here in the water.
Hey, get out of the way!
I'm going to wait till more horrible happens to our planet. And I'm a senator, so fortunately, I get to make those decisions for all of us.
So this has been viewed a zillion times. These are popular, and it fits this image of Republicans as old guys who deny modern science.
Sure, and in some cases that's true. At the same time, that doesn't mean that the people who believe in the proper science of this have the best policy. And this is especially true when it comes to issues that involve environmentalism in some way or the other.
I don't mind when they say I'm not a scientist, but I want to see really convincing evidence before we spend more of your money and turn our lives upside down for global warming.
To say that I am not a scientist is an important reminder. It's not always used this way. I wish that Andrew Cuomo in New York said, I'm not a scientist, which might explain why I banned fracking in my state, where, you know, there's incredible poverty in upstate New York, and no one has shown that fracking does anything bad to groundwater. All the blue ribbon studies on this have basically said it's okay. We haven't seen any kind of evidence for that.
I wouldn't say they haven't shown anything, because there are a few cases where it's caused a problem. But when you dig all energy is dirty.
When you dig 30,000 wells, there's going to be a couple of them that get dirty. But yeah, that's a big issue. And a lot of times environmentalists shift their own beliefs on science, including fracking, once that science or once the practice starts to become popular, right? It will happen if solar ever gets very popular. There'll be a lot of people talking about, you know, desert wildlife that we're ruining in this process.
John Podesta, who's going to be running Hillary's campaign in 2009, he said natural gas is the cleanest fuel, produces less than half as much carbon pollution as coal. He was all enthusiastic.
Yeah, he might be a little bit less now, although Hillary Clinton actually is not as bad on this issue as Andrew Cuomo and some other Democrats are.
One thing the left is often anti-science about is producing electricity by splitting atoms.
Nuclear power remains a dirty, dangerous, and expensive form of energy.
Some of the world's worst disasters happened at nuclear plants. Fukushima, there was Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island.
What? 3 Mile Island hurt nobody. There was a tiny release of radioactivity.
Yeah.
And these other, I mean, people think 1,000 died at Chernobyl. The real total is 60. Fukushima, no deaths. What are they? Lemon's normally a sane guy.
I think a lot of this is cultural memory, right? And then there's new technologies with nuclear that makes it even cleaner. But every big energy thing has trade-offs, and those trade-offs are always going to be messy.
Lots of people on the left are scared of GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Actually, some libertarians too. Food company scientists play around with genes in plants to create better tasting foods, or foods that stay fresh longer, or plants that resist insects. But the left says, don't fool with Mother Nature. And this week, Hollywood said that in the new movie Jurassic World, which had the biggest global opening of any movie ever.
A whole new frontier has opened up. We have our first genetically modified hybrid.
You just went and made a new dinosaur?
Probably not a good idea.
We've had these fears since Frankenstein. Everybody who's looked at this, and I mean even the European Commission, when they looked into this, has said this has no adverse effects on mankind, period. And what it does, while not hurting you in any way, it allows you to use much less pesticides. Pesticides are supposed to be bad. They actually are kind of bad. You don't want a lot of them. You use a lot less fertilizer. You can make a lot more wheat and corn on this patch of stuff, so you can use the rest of your land for forests and happy things like that. So the environmental trade-off here is so clear. It's crystal clear. So people who are opposing GMOs, especially at the level of government, are leading to preventable deaths.
Today in America, some people get sick because other people fear vaccines. Curiously, it's often wealthy liberals who fall for the scare and don't vaccinate their kids. Here's a map that shows the biggest measles outbreaks in California are often in liberal areas like Hollywood, and it was Hollywood stars who convinced lots of people that there are bad things in vaccines.
Like the frickin' mercury, the ether, the aluminum, the antifreeze need to be removed immediately.
How stupid do you think we are?
This is sad. A lot of this dates to a 1998 Lancet study that was eventually withdrawn. Everyone who has studied this subsequent to this said it's wrong, linking vaccines to autism. And because of that, we see a lot of bad policy.
I'm struck that it's this belief by anecdote. I vaccinated my kid, and then the autism showed up.
Well, it's also, we mandate way more of these things than we do. I just had a daughter recently, 4 months old now, and you have to get the vaccine for hepatitis. It's like, you know what? I don't think that she's an intravenous drug user who's having unprotected sex. So what are we doing here? We're talking about what can you inject into your child. So I understand people's question of that. It's just regrettable when it's based on absolute junk science, which it is too often.